Hi everyone, my name is Andy McBride, and for my career profile, I chose Psychosocial Rehabilitation Specialist, and luckily they actually have um, quite a few of those in Boise, Idaho, where I am from, and I was able to get in contact with Dr. Christina Harrington, and was able to ask her a few questions that the internet couldn't suffice in telling, to be able to give me a more elaborate and more knowledgeable answer about what they actually do for work. The first thing that I inquired about her was the working environment that they had. She said it varies depending on the area of clinical studies you prefer to go into, because certain portions of psychosocial rehabilitation actually does require a master's degree. But I asked her in the broad spectrum, not just with those pertaining to a bachelor's in science. But the general working environment can be from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. depending on the clinic that you do decide to work at. Some offices do have on-call hours depending on what you are helping your patient or client with. It is a very family-friendly office. They do have portions where you can associate with family members to be able to help them become more integrated with social aspects, and I'll be able to get further into that later. And it's also you're very limited to what you can do and where you can work depending on your education, because certain jobs do require a master's degree. And she said the typical stressors that are conjoined with this place of work is that you can see clients regress, unfortunately, and you can see them regress in drastic measures, which is hard, especially if you do get emotionally too attached, which is not ideal. You do have on-call hours, and like I said, there is an emotional toll. She said another hard thing to deal with is especially if you're trying to help an individual person who may be residing in a parent's home or is under the age of 18, is dealing with the family members of clients if they don't agree with what you are trying to help this individual with. And with the certain types of benefits you can receive, it depends, again, where you're working at and your level of education. So certain jobs where she works and resides, she does have a 401k, health insurance, dental, vision, and obviously she's able to have certain vacation times, sick pay, stuff like that. It just depends on, again, where you're working at and your educational experience. For the common tasks that are performed within psychosocial rehabilitation, they're known for basically helping people adjust to a social environment and be able to utilize medication if needed with individuals or within groups, so such as a family or friends, or just a group in general, for those who may have been addicted to any form of drug. They do help them be able to get integrated back into a social norm aspect, to where they can help them find a job, help them with schooling, stuff like that. It's just be able to help them get back into the social functionality of life. So they help them develop a plan that helps them learn a set of skills needed for independent living, and it makes it so it's a little bit easier because it's a goal-based kind of therapy. They help them form goals and then help them be able to get to that point, and they talk about it each week that they meet. And they can also intervene in crisis situations, such as those if they relapse and they go back into drugs, or if they need help, so that way they can get them back to the social norms that are needed. And as I said before, for educational requirements, it does vary depending on what clinical focus you are going into. So for those that are wanting just to do a bachelor's in science, you can get a bachelor's degree, and it's acceptable for some entry-level positions, but certain states may require that you need to do a Psychiatric Rehabilitation Association certification, and that's just a license to be able to say that you're allowed to do what you were trained to do. Some will actually require a bachelor's degree in psychiatric rehabilitation, and it requires 6 months of relevant work for experience. You can get an associate's degree in psychiatric rehabilitation, and it requires 1 year of relevant work experience. But it can vary on what you want to do, but most, if you're just doing an entry-level degree with a bachelor's in science, you're able to go in from there, but you aren't usually able to progress up the career ladder without further education. Let's see. Oh, also, so those who do have the degrees and certificates in like other areas of mental health, so like let's say our marriage and family study major, you are actually required to complete an additional 45 hours in training of psychiatric rehabilitation. So for us at BYU, Idaho, if we were to be able to go into this, we'd have to graduate, have our degree, but then we'd have to do an additional 45 hours of psychiatric rehabilitation training. And then the salary range for this job actually varies quite a bit, honestly. So starting, it depends on where you're going in at again, and depending on the place of work and where you live. Location has a big deal to do with it. So let's say I was going to stay in Boise, Idaho, and be able to work here. My starting would be about $23,000 to $24,000, but let's say I was going to go to a bigger city such as Salt Lake, or on the East Coast like Boston or New York, it would actually increase to about $30,000 starting. But the average overall, like the median all over the United States, is about $39,000 for the salary. And if you're an experienced person in Boise, you can get about $35,000 to $45,000. But if you are even more experienced and you're on the East Coast or in a bigger city where it's in more high demand and it's not as a competitive market, you're able to get anywhere from $50,000 to $55,000. It just varies to what you're studying in, what you're focusing on, because there's different ways you can focus on for psychosocial rehabilitation. There's just different components you can go into, just like with marriage and family studies, there's different focuses. But it just depends on all those little aspects, but in a general idea, that is where it comes to. But I have learned a lot more about what I want to do with the psychosocial rehabilitation, and I was shocked at how much it entails. There is a lot more stress than I thought there would be, but I'm super excited to learn more about it and be able to elaborate on our next video project about what I can do with it with a master's degree. Appreciate you guys watching and have a great day.